All right, to start with, we're going to be working on the monster plant here, and we're going to start with working on the pot. The pot's made up of a couple pieces, the main part down below, and then this takes a couple little steps. So we're going to go ahead and start with this large piece first. It is made of these 4 sections, and these 2 are the sides, and they're both identical. So I'm going to just go ahead and fold all of my score lines. There we go. That one done. And do the same over here. This just makes it easier to get everything together. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I am going to put some glue on my tab here. There. And line this up along the edge. And get that nice and square flush along that line. All right, now we'll just do the same thing on this side. And I'm going to close it off. There. So that is the base of my pot. Now I'm going to close it off, and to close it off I've got these 2 here. They are identical, so I'm going to start by putting one inside. That'll force this to take a nice good shape, and the other one will cover up the tabs, and the 2 together make it really kind of nice and strong, which is more important if you were to put things in here, but this is actually going to be a closed off piece. This isn't like a party box or anything, it's just a decoration so that you won't be able to put things into the pot. Okay, so I got that. Got glue on all of my tabs. I'll go ahead, put this in here. Press down all of those tabs in a circle here. Nice and secure. So what I'm going to do now is add glue to the bottom. I do want to try to put it close to those edges. That way they don't end up pulling up or getting caught in anything when I move the pot around later. Just makes the bottom a little more stable. There we go. So I'm going to set that aside for now. And this top part, the lip or whatever you want to call it of the pot, is going to be put together using a couple different sections. Well, a few pieces. We've got 3 identical octagon rings. We've got that to close it off, and then this actually is going to be used to put the little monster guy into it. So we're going to go ahead and use this one and set this piece aside for now. I also have several pieces that look quite similar. So these 2, you'll notice, have no tab on the side. And these 2 here are identical, except this set is a little shorter. So the ones without the tabs, I'm going to take them and one of my octagon rings and just set them aside for now because I don't need them at the moment. What I do need to do is keep track of which one's the larger and which one is the smaller. I'm going to go ahead and start with the smaller set. And they go together the same, but they go in a different spot once we actually get them assembled into their octagon shape. So I'm going to fold everything along the score lines. Those. All right, so they are all nice and folded along the score lines. And I just need to connect the two. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue here. There we go. And this part's actually going to be hidden inside of the pot. You're never really going to see this set of rings. So if your glue escapes or end up having to use some paper that doesn't quite match your project, for this ring, that's fine. Nobody's ever going to see this inner small ring. Connect it around. There we go. So there's my small. And now I'm going to do the same with the big. And it's important I keep track of the big and the small, otherwise things just won't quite fit right. All right, almost done. And this ring is the outer part of that lip, so it will be visible. On mine, I chose, on the monster plant over here, I chose to distress my paper just a little bit and add some ink and stuff. So if you want to do anything like that, doing it before you assemble this ring is probably the easiest time to do it. Okay, so I've got my big ring here and my small ring, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the bottom tabs here and I'm going to fold them out because I'm going to put that ring over the top and attach it to these tabs coming out. So just like that, you can see how they're coming out on the side there. I'm going to put glue on them and then slide this over top to create an octagon. Just a little bit of glue there. I want to make sure I get those tabs pretty well covered. I don't want them to be loose or coming free or anything like that. I need to make sure it's really well secured. And this part won't ever be seen, so if you happen to get glue somewhere and you don't have to worry about it showing. Just slide that over. There we have it. So we've got this part done. Now we're going to do the same thing again, only here we're going to go inside of this one. So I'm going to fold these back. Don't want them in my way because I need to be able to reach through and push down, which I actually have a pencil on hand for that because my fingers are just a little too wide to slide in there. without causing some paper bowing problems. All right, so now I'll go ahead and add glue to these. I'm just running a line against the fold and then across the edge of that tab. That should be plenty. And now I'm going to slide this in just like that. Use my pencil so I can push everything down, hold it in place. Looks like I've got some that aren't quite attached all the way. I just have to give an extra push over here. Just really take your time and make sure that these are really well secured and attached, because you don't want things coming apart later or hanging down off of the bottom of your pot. There you go, that's better. So what I need to do is I am going to take my other octagon shape, and I should come along and actually fix all those. I might take a minute and do that. But I'm going to glue it down right here. And this piece is actually going to be like this on your pot. This octagon piece here is actually the one that runs around here. Otherwise you'd have all those tabs exposed and stuff. So I'm going to take a minute and go add a little more glue in here. Try to get that to lay a little bit flatter. There we go. That's better. All right, now I'm going to add my glue on this one. All right, and I'm going to line it up on here. Just don't want all these tabs to be exposed, even though you're not really going to see them easily since they're underneath. Still like the idea of having them covered up. You can kind of press down here, take my pencil. Want to make sure it's really nice and attached. Okay, I'm happy with that. And you can take your time and spend a little bit of extra time making sure that that's really where it needs to be. So we've got that. Next, we're going to want to fold all of these over. Because I am going to take this and add this panel. I'm going to just close off the top completely. So what I can do to make sure it's lined up just right to start with is I'm going to just attach on one tab. Slide that tab out of there. And get my corners just so, because this is going to make sure the whole thing is exactly how I need it to be. Oops. I don't want that glue there. It's going to be a mess. There we go. All right. And you'd want to be cleaner with your glue, because this will be seen. All right. So now all these are laying down. I'm going to just come around and add glue to all of these tabs. These inside ones aren't quite as important when it comes to getting it attached and everything, but I just like to put some glue in there just so that they're not moving around a whole bunch. It's these outer ones that I really need to have lined up and in place. There we have it. And because it's kind of in that octagon shape already for me, there's not a whole lot to adjust. Just make sure that it's not bowing or anything. Give it a little press all the way around to make sure you don't miss any of your tabs. You tend to lose track and end up going extra, but that sure will not hurt anything. Okay, and I can come around if I want and give these a nice little push. Everything just kind of falls into place. It's nice. So there we have top. And if you want, you could add some rocks or something in here to make it a little bit heavier, so that's not top heavy, but we haven't done that with this guy, and he's got all kinds of crazy going on the top, but he's not been a tipping hazard. He's actually pretty stable. So it really is kind of up to you if that's an extra step that you want to take. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add glue to all my tabs. Then I'm actually going to set this down in it so those tabs can glue to the inside of my octagon. And I can be fairly liberal with the glue here because this is what's going to be holding this pot together. And if it escapes a little bit, the lip on this octagon will hide any glue that's trying to get out. So a little extra is not going to hurt anything. It actually could end up being a good thing. All right, so I got my glue here. I just go ahead and bring that over. Make sure it's all the way down. Over here and give it a little push. Got some glue good on the edge, but it's okay. So that is how the pot ends up with that lip around it, but it still needs one more thing. We have this octagon that we're not quite ready for, but we have the other two panels. These are the ones that don't have the tabs on the side. I'm going to go ahead and start folding all of those score lines. I'm going to put it around the top of my pot. All right, and this time, instead of making a loop and sliding it on, you can either make one big long piece and work your way around. I actually find it easier if I do it in sections. So I'm going to start on the end that has this tab, so that way it is attached up against my side of the pot. If I start on this end, and it's glued down, the tab of the one that comes over on this side isn't going to be able to slide under because this will be secured. So I want to start on the end that has the tab and just add some glue on here. Put this down. And I want to make sure that this bottom is nice and secure and straight. I want it to be nice and flush with the bottom there, and my corners to line up. So if I actually fold it along there, I can make sure that those are all lining up with each other. And then I am going to do the next two, because remember, I want this one not to be properly secured all the way so that the next can go in place first. So I'm going to just do these two. Bring this over. If you take a little more time than I did, I was kind of in a hurry, but this shouldn't really have such a wobble in it. It should be a little better attached, but you can do that when you're putting that octagon ring in place. So with these three, I'm actually going to set this aside and go ahead and work on the next one. I'm going to start again with the end of the tab. Down and just put that into place. Now, while that is setting, I can come over here and put glue on this tab and along here. There we go. So that one's in place. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this back and add glue to this one. I'll go ahead and do all three in one go, just to make it a little easier. Apply pressure on my way around, make sure that all that glue sets, then line it up here at the end. And now I have what gives it kind of a lip that comes up above where your plant's going to set. And in a little bit, I'm going to come back and fold these down, and then I can either cover the whole thing with another ring so you don't have these creases, or you can just go ahead and leave it as is. That's really kind of up to you. But there we go. The pot is done. All right, so with the pot completed for now, remember this part is still being left loose. We are going to move on to the stem part of the monster plant. And that's made of 8 pieces going around, and then another set of 8 for the decorative panels. And so to start with the plant, we've got the 8 base structure pieces, and they're going to cut with little marks on the tabs at the bottom. Here I've written on it in white pen just to make it a little easier to see. And they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, hole 4. So you just do these and then move on to this one and keep going. That way you know you have all of them in the right order. So I'm going to go ahead and start with number 1. If you want to start with number 2, that's fine. Just make sure that 3 attaches over here and they end up in the right order when you're done. So I'm going to fold all my tabs. Fold this one backwards. It doesn't really matter, but eventually it will be backward. Same with this one actually. But it's not going to matter. We just need to get them kind of flexible so that when we are working with it later, it's ready to move. Now, I am going to start on the bottom here. and add my glue. And then line these two up. There we go. Get those bottom corners lined up right. Make sure that that's lined up. Fold this back and add to my next two tabs. There we have it. And that's going to start the shape of that stem right away. So, on to the next one. To make sure that the bottom is going to fit properly into the octagon panel with a hole in it, because the bottom of this is going to slide into this hole here, and that's what's going to support the plant. You need to make sure that these are really close together, because if they're not, then the shape that this makes will be a little bit too big to fit into that hole. There we go. And that's number 4. So I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4. And later, just to make it a little bit easier to know which one's which for the decorative panels, I have actually written on the back just of number 1 and 2. I did it in pencil, so you may not be able to see it, but I just wrote on the back 1 and 2, which is 1 and 2. So that way, I mean, I could figure it out, but it's easier if I just have at least 2 of them marked so I know where I'm going. All right, so next I've got 1 through 4, and then I'm going to go 0, 1. Go. Just keep on going. There we go. Made the corner there. And then a little too high. There we go. That's better. 2 more to go. The last one's a little bit tricky because you don't have a lot of space to be able to move around, but I'll show you how to get around that, or at least what's worked for me. You can kind of figure out whatever is going to work for you and what's comfortable. All right. This one. All right, so I want to make sure that that glue is set so that I can go ahead and move this around a little extra. I'm going to put some pressure on it while I'm trying to get this one into place. What I'm going to do is get these folded. And I'm going to glue the top tab instead of the bottom. I'll just do this one, and then I'm going to do the other top tab to finish the loop and work my way down. That way I can kind of push this out of the way and reach inside with my finger and apply a little bit of pressure from both sides. So, got that. Put it in like that. If I need to, I can even reach under with a pencil. And that way I can really push down on the tab and get those two to connect. And make sure that they're in the proper position and pressed into place. So with that, I'm going to fold that out of my way and glue my next tab. Oops. And if you want to pause and let your glue set for a minute, because sometimes if it's not fully set, it'll let go here while you're trying to get it glued over here. That actually might be a good idea. Just kind of make sure that the glue has dried and is ready for you to move things around without it letting go. There we go. Alright, next I'm going to go ahead and do both of these tabs at the same time. Get that in place. And that one. And if you end up making it just a little bit rough over here, that's okay. It's going to be covered up by the decorative panel. So if you end up adding a crease or something where you don't really want it, it'll be fine. So next, I'm going to fold these out just like that. I'm going to add my glue to each tab. Now, I'm going to take this piece here with the octagon cut out, and just slide it straight over top and press it down. Need to make sure it's in position. There we have it. So that's going to be the base of the plant right there. And then, like for this guy, we ended up doing the decorative paper with all the little dots and that kind of stuff on it. And so for the stem, I cut it out in that same dotted paper. For this one, instead, I've decided I want to keep the plain green color on it. But because I do have some folds and things like that and some glue that escaped on me, I am going to go ahead and put on a decorative layer of the same green paper. That's something you could choose to skip if you want. To not have all of those little lines and stuff like that showing, I mean, you can probably hide it down here like I did with the moss on the other guy and stuff, but to not have all those little marks and lines showing, what we've done is they're going to show up next to each one of the shapes. So I've written on it in white to make it easier to see. But here's number 1, and instead of having a cut in it, or worse, the circle and a bunch of lines, we put them down below. And so when you're putting on your paper, keep in mind there is a mark down below, so I wouldn't want to put another cut right here because then it'll have that mark in there. But this way you can know which one is which without having to try to guess, because they get very confusing if that's what you're doing. So I'm going to just go ahead. Remember, I marked underneath here what 2 of them were, just so I keep track. So I've got number 1 and number 2. So number 1 is right here, and I'm going to go on ahead and add my decorative piece on here. And I'm going to start by gluing up at the top, because if for some reason the way that this has gone in here or the way I've put these together, I have one of these that's a little long, I want the extra to land down here, because down here it's going to end up, I could hide it with leaves, I can hide it with moss, I can do all kinds of stuff to keep that from showing. If your extra is up here, it's going to get in the way of you attaching the head of your plant, and we don't want that. We need that to be nice and strong. So there are some fold lines on here, and you can choose to use them however much you want. I am going to use these 2 a little bit. This one I'm not going to use so much, just because I don't want to accentuate that spot. But it does kind of help it to fold a little bit by having that there. So I'm going to just go ahead and add my glue. And then starting at the top, I'm going to line it up. There we go. Just run my finger along it to press it into place and support it. See, I've got a little extra, which is perfectly fine. These 3 tend to land that way just a little bit, and so I make sure it comes down at the bottom, and then everything is just fine. So there's my 1, and over here is my 2, and then they just continue around from there. But having at least 2 of them marked underneath really makes it easier for this step. There we go. And on to number 3. And once you get that top piece in place, the rest of it kind of lands where it needs to for the most part, so you don't have to guide it too much to be in the right spot. All right, so I've got those three, and I'm going to go ahead and continue my way around. Okay, so now that I have all of my decorative panels on, I am going to go ahead and get my pot and move these tabs up and out of my way. So that way I can apply glue to the bottom and slide it on in. And just add. I'm going to be pretty generous with the glue that I put here. That way as I add weight to the top, especially since it's not going straight up and down, I want to make sure that this isn't going to let go. So I'm going to put a fair amount on. Okay. There we have it. Next step is going to be getting this down. And now there's two different ways. You can either put glue on each of these tabs, which is what we ended up doing for this little monster guy. You can see that we've got little lines here and there. Maybe you can see it better on the back. So you can see where we folded it over and glued it in place. Or if you want, you can just fold all of them down, put glue in place, and then glue that. But I kind of like the little bit of a line that makes. It's just a little small detail that I actually kind of like. But if you don't, or if you don't want to deal with going through and gluing all of these, you have the option of skipping that step. So just a little bit of glue, a good little pinch, and it is in place. I like this better just because it uses a little bit less paper. It kind of saves me one sheet of paper, which doesn't seem like a lot, but this little monster guy takes quite a bit. So I kind of like the idea of saving just even one. I go through a lot of paper, so if I can cut a corner and double up somewhere or save something, I'll do it. Okay, so I've got all those in place. Now we are going to go ahead and work on making the head. The head of the plant consists of two parts, the top and the bottom. You can tell the bottom because it's got this little notch cut out, and that's where the neck of, or the stem of the plant is going to come in and attach. We don't have marks on the tabs here because these ones are pretty small and didn't really have space to be able to put our 1, 2, 3 and our circle 1 and all that business on here. So instead, when you cut them, they're set to come out in their individual shapes. So that way everything is in order. And you'll notice that on one side, these three are just a little bit shorter. They're one shorter. It's because these are going to be attaching in and taking up that spot. And the same thing with over here. These three are just one fold short, which just means that when you come along, you need to start at the top and work your way down. That way you don't accidentally end up with them in misalignment. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to just pick a spot and go around in a circle. And I'm going to start always with that first tab, just so that I don't accidentally end up aligning them wrong, since I do have a couple that are a little bit shorter. If I can get my first tab in place correct, then I can go ahead and do all the rest in one go. So, got that. And since it's one short, I'm not going to put glue on that last tab. I'll be using that later. There we have it. And my next one. I do want to make sure I get that really nicely lined up on that edge. Then I can come along and do the rest of these. And these are the same length. I can tell that just by holding it down. So I can go ahead and put glue on all of these tabs. Glue escaping, there we go. All my tabs are in place. Move to the next one. Oops, I should have just started with that one. There we go. All right, I got the other glue, so I just get that last tab. All right. And I'll just keep working my way around with all of them. That set. Go over here. And now I'm back into the longer ones. So you notice that these are the three that are short. And this one has a tab on it that's on its own. And this one is just kind of hanging at the moment. And that is, I got glue everywhere. It's actually what I need. These three are the same length as these two, so they'll actually line up at the bottom the rest of the way around. And hopefully you'll be a little cleaner with your glue than I am. I'm kind of making a mess, but thankfully there are decorative panels to cover that up because I am a bit of a mess. There we go. And that one is a little bit too high. There we go. That's better. It should line up at the top and at the bottom. So if one is not, it wasn't quite lining up down here, so that means I had this up too far, which is fine. It's easy to shift down. And I'll just go ahead and do these other two. There we go, and then just one more panel after this. go. Make sure all of those tabs are attached. I said hopefully you're a little cleaner with your glue than I am being right now. And then as the final step, because I know that these ones line up, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of, do all the tabs. There we go. So this is the head, because it's just got the regular shape here. A little notch is going to be for the bottom. So there's the top. And now I'm going to go ahead and flatten these down a little bit. Add glue to them. Put this in place. Oops. There we go. Once it starts to set, I can actually reach from behind and press those tabs. Got a little bit of a gap, which tells me I didn't quite line these up just right. You do need to make sure that they're nice and tight, but even with that little gap, it'll pretty well be covered up later as I put the decorative panels over top. But that's because I didn't get them lined up as well as I could have. All right, and there we go. So the next step is going to be doing the bottom half. All right, since the two of these actually go together the same, I went ahead and assembled the bottom. You can tell it's the bottom because it's got an open hole here where the stem is going to attach. And to close that up, I am going to go ahead and add glue to these tabs here and make sure that my cutout part goes over to continue the hole for the stem. So I will add some glue to each of my tabs. There we go. Try to hold that in position to get everything where I need it to be. If you don't have everything lined up just right, you get at those little holes. I was in a little bit of a hurry doing this and didn't get it perfectly lined up, but once everything is said and done, I'm not going to really notice that I didn't quite get it to perfection, but you can go ahead and be a little more careful on that if you want. So I've got that, and again, just like the one I did earlier, there's 3 of them that are here that are one bend short, and that is going to be how we attach this one to this one using our little pieces here, but we're not quite ready for that. What we need to do next is put on all of our decorative panels, which I've already done. This is for the top of the monster plant head. Since the stem comes through here, is the bottom, and I'm going to go ahead, and again, I did not put any of the little markers on there because I don't want the lines or the circles or anything cut out of my nice pretty paper. So everything is in order. If I want to, I can even line it up. So here's the shorter 3, my shorter 3, and then everything else. So this will just go straight onto here. And to do that, I am going to just put a little bit of glue on the top and then along the bottom. That way it's allowed to kind of be more of a curve than actual bending with my base panels. So there's that. And I'll just work my way around. I do kind of encourage it to curve a little bit. That way it's not trying to be straight and fight me when I'm putting it on. Doesn't take too much glue. There we go. And as you can see, they go on pretty easy. There's not a whole lot of difficulty with these ones, especially if you get your base panels all lined up really well when you're assembling. You won't end up with any big gaps or problems or whatever. There we go. My paper didn't quite cut right. That's okay. That's why I use the same, as close a color as I can for the base as I do for my decoration. I like to have them be similar colors or somehow coordinating, because that way if I have any problems or any little spots, the gaps aren't super obvious, because no matter how hard you try, there's always something that's just a little bit off. But you can set yourself up to cover that by having at least this coordinate or match whatever your top panel is. So I didn't catch it before, but it looks like this piece here cut without just a little bit of a corner, but that's not going to stand out. If I had like white, black or some other color underneath here where it's really different than this, that would be a problem, and I'd have to go and recut it. There we have it. The last piece is just this one here. I'll go on top. And there we go. So I have now the top and the bottom completed for the head of the plant. Here's the bottom, and here's going to be the top, and they're going to go together like that. Before I start putting the pieces to connect it, I'm actually going to go ahead and put the teeth on. I find it easier to have to try to reach past the teeth to get these in position than to try to get the teeth on once these two are connected. But if it works better for you to do it a different way, that's fine. Just kind of whichever one you feel a little bit more comfortable doing. I prefer to do the teeth. So the nice thing is they are the same. The top and the bottom, there's no difference. So we've got the teeth. And then we have an extra panel, so if you want to, say, give it pink lips or purple or whatever color scheme you're working with, you can go ahead and have the lips be a little bit of a different color, which on our other plant, we did exactly that. We did a kind of a bright green to go ahead and contrast with this darker green head. But for this one, I've decided to do white lips with white teeth, which kind of seems redundant, but I like the texture it kind of gives it, which may not show up really well in pictures, but I feel like in person it just kind of gives it a little bit of depth and difference. So to me it's worth it to go ahead and take the extra time and paper. And to put this on, all I'm going to do is add a little bit of glue the whole length of it. There we have it. And then I'm going to just line it up at one end. better I can line it up at the beginning, the better this will lay out. On here, my glue is a little forgiving, but not super forgiving. So I can go ahead and adjust that a little bit into position. There. So, one set of teeth and lips done, and now to do the other one. There we go. Didn't quite get it lined up super well there at the beginning, so just a little extra fussing to get it into place. It's not quite exactly there, but that's okay. All right, so we have our 2 sets of teeth. And before, you could kind of see in here, there's that last panel here that was making this part here extra long. So this is where we're going to connect to the pieces for the back, and that little extra long spot is actually where the teeth are going to lay over top of. So I'm going to go ahead and add glue and then glue this down. And depending on the thickness layers of all your layers, I actually like to start in the middle and center it here and go on back, because I've noticed the different types of paper I use sometimes changes exactly how lined up that is. If my decorative panel especially is kind of a thicker paper, it tends not to line up quite as perfectly. So if I start in the center, it'll kind of take care of some of that so that it at least comes out to be equal on either side. So to do that, I'm actually just going to glue starting in the middle. You can kind of see there's little, I didn't write on here because I don't want it to show my final product, but there's little cut lines that'll guide you for where the center is. And so I'm going to just take those and line it up here and hold that position. I can check on the back to make sure I'm at the level I want it to be. Kind of want the center where those teeth are to get real close to lining up with where the red starts. So with the glue set there, I can go ahead and come over here and add a little bit more. And then just go section by section to lay that out. There we go. And because this decorative panel is really thin, kind of almost like paper, printer paper weight, it lines up really nice there at the end. If I was using more of a cardstock, then it tends to be a little bit shorter. And if you don't like that, you can lengthen this one piece just a little bit in your program. But it's amazing the difference just the type of paper you're using can make. There we go. Okay, I've got my little teeth starting to get a little personality. This is actually the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go ahead, give a little bit of an extra fold so I can see where my center is. Add a little glue here. There. Kind of check my spot there. All right. So I feel that that's secure and not going to slide on me while I'm working with the rest of it. I can go ahead and add my glue. Okay, there we go. Just gotta kind of run it along there, make sure I don't have any wobbles in my paper. There, I have it. And there is the top, so it's his head and his teeth. Kind of love how that's looking. This paper's fun. All right, so before I go ahead and attach the top to the bottom, it's actually easier if I attach this part onto the stem. That way I can reach in. So in order to reach through though, I need to put it in here, just like that. And then I'm going to add glue to each one of these tabs one at a time, like starting with my center one there. And just fold it up and hold it in place. And then I'm going to work my way around. Probably only going to do about 1 or 2 tabs at a time. I want to make sure that I get these really snug against the edge, and also that the glue is really properly set. Don't want to risk letting this go, having any of these pop up later, because it's not going to be in a position where you can easily get back in there to fix later. So, and if I need to, I can push down below to move those tabs just a little bit to get into a better position where I want them to be. There we have it. Go ahead and do these two together. Feel like we're in a good position here. And then I'm going to go ahead and do these two as well. And I'm actually giving a fair amount of pressure. I'm really pinching these between my fingers. I want those to be really nice and tight on there, because that is going to keep the head on my stem. See how it kind of goes into there? And it's also going to be what's supporting the rest of my plant up above. So I want that to be nice and strong. Now, if you're doing the plant like this one, now's the time you'd want to do the tongue. So the tongue is 2 pieces that we just put on there back to back, just to give it a little bit of extra strength. And I actually just wove it through my fingers to give it a little bit of a curve. But I added a little bit of hot glue to the end. I don't know if you can see it in there, but I just put it down into the throat a little bit, about a ½ inch or so down in there, and then pressed it into place there with some hot glue. And that's how the tongue gets in there. But we have the tongue and the eyes and all that kind of stuff in the written directions with pictures and stuff if you're doing kind of the more crazy jungly plant instead of kind of the simpler monster guy or girl. So we have that part of it done. Now the next part, this is where it gets a little kind of difficult just because your fingers have to be able to fit in there a little bit. But I am going to get ready to attach the head onto our monster. So it's easy to tell which one order they go in, because the tabs that connect them are on the right. And this little tab here is going to attach in there. And this little tab there is going to attach over here. So I am going to start by putting this one onto the bottom of the plant head. I'm going to just center it on the back here. There we go. There. And now I'm going to go ahead and add glue. I'm going to do all 3 of these tabs just because they're in kind of a tough spot to get to. But I need to make sure, most of all, that this one and this one are really in a good position. So I'm going to that in there. And then this one. Try to be as clean as I can with that glue. There. And again, I'm actually pinching these pretty hard. I should have been more careful to have my fingers be clean because now I've got a little glue mark. If I really wanted to, I could take a chalk eraser and kind of rub some of that off. All right, and for the last little panel, I'm going to do it again where I'm adding glue just to this one here because I'm not ready for this one. That's going to go onto the top part. Put glue here and then glue onto this tab here. And it's kind of awkward doing this on camera. I usually hold this in my lap when I'm doing it. There we go. Good squeeze. I really need that glue to be set because I don't want this to shift on me at all while I'm trying to get that head into position. So I'm actually going to let that sit for just a minute and show you how the leaves are going to be put together just so that glue has time to get itself in, so it's not going to move on me at all. The leaves are pretty straightforward. We've already assembled 2 of them. I'm going to go ahead and add the 3rd one here. And the leaves are really up to you where you want to put them. If you're wanting to put them down below into the pot itself, or if you want to attach them to the stem or something. But that's all the leaf is. But I like to have them curved. I can do that with my fingers. You can grab like some canned food out of the pantry and kind of just hold and curve it around the can or whatever size circle you're wanting to try to encourage this to be. But you could kind of just do your leaves, get them all glued, curve them a little bit, give that back part of the head a chance to really get set so that it's ready before you move on to the next part. So, and this glue is still a little wet. There we go. Okay. I have my leaves ready for to put on there. This glue's had a moment to sit. And now what I am going to do is I am going to just start by gluing only this one tab in place because I can have it in whatever position is going to be easiest for me to hold on to. After that it gets a little awkward, but one step at a time and it'll all work out. There we have it. Okay, so the next part is going, oh, not quite fully secured. I'm going to just redo that real quick. Because the way this is attached on here is going to decide how your head is sitting. If it's a little bit twisted, the top half of your head's going to be a little twisted. So you really want to get that straight and make sure it doesn't shift on you when you move to the next step. So I'm going to hold this with my left hand and go ahead and get ready. I'm going to add some glue to both of those tabs, like this one here actually didn't get done. So I'm going to fix that right now. There we go. Hold that too. There. All right. Add my glue here. And there. The head is going to close down just like that. I got to reach past those teeth. Get into position. Now, this is where it can be helpful to have something like a pencil at the writing end. So you can reach past those teeth and give it a little bit of a push so you can have that counter pressure. And then just go ahead and push against there, and slowly with my pencil work my way along the tab itself so that the whole thing gets a little bit of pressure on it. But I only do a little bit at a time because there's not a lot of control that I have. I don't want it to slip on me. So now I go ahead and attach that little tab there. Looks like it needs a little extra pressure in the back. So make sure that I get a good firm hold here before I move on to the other side, because reaching in like this is going to put a little pressure on the tabs that I do have attached, and I don't want them to come apart. So I got those. Now I'm going to come over here and do these ones. And again, I'm going to just place my thumb right here. I'm going to reach in, not with the writing end, and push on it with the end of my pencil so that I can have it in position. I do want to make sure I press on the whole tab all along there. Don't want my head to fall apart. And if I want, I can try to reach in with my fingers just to make sure that I've got everything. There we go. I can also kind of adjust the way that's done right there. So we've got our monster head. I ended up placing this a little bit low so it's not as open. You can see on this guy here that it's right there, even almost above the line, which has made his head, his mouth be much more open. I can have it more closed by placing it a little bit low. So it really is kind of what ends up happening as you put it in there, or the choices that you make as you put it together. Alright, for the last part, I went and plugged in my hot glue gun because I feel like it actually goes together a little bit easier than if I try to use my regular glue and sit and hold and wait for it to set. So what I've done is I've kind of got them curved the way I want them to be. I've got 3 of them made, but that doesn't mean I'm going to use all 3. It kind of depends on how I feel. So I'm going to put one here. I've kind of got it ready. I'm going to add my hot glue and just pop it into position. Try to clean up my glue. I tend to make a mess with that stuff. Alright. Got it in place. I just kind of picked a spot, held it against my plant a few times, thought it through, decided, you know what, I think this is where I like it best. I encourage it to come down a little bit more. There we have it. And this one, I'm kind of feeling like I might actually put up a little bit higher. I'm going to just put a little bit of glue down at the bottom. There we go. And then pop it in place. So, just like that. And I have a third if I want to, but I'm kind of feeling like 2 might be about right. I could put this one in the back maybe, or somewhere, but I don't know. I'm liking it with my 2, so I'm going to go ahead and go with that. That's basically how we ended up putting these guys, all these different leaves and things in place. I started by putting this, I don't know how well you can see it, it's a floral wire that's wrapped in what looks like a fibrous wood stuff, so it looks like a vine or a stem. I just cut it with my wire cutters and hot glued it in 2 spots and encouraged it to have a little shape, and then cut another piece and hot glued it. So this is actually one piece here and one there. And then I hot glued these little leaves on. And I just bent these around my fingers to give them all a little bit of different shape, just so that they have a little action and movement going on. Once I had that done, I decided that I wanted these 3, and so I made them, put them in kind of wherever it is that I felt was looking the best and what worked with my little vines. After that, I put in this one here. Kind of like this little guy, kind of gives the back a little something going on without being too much. So I just hot glued it at the bottom, and then I put a little touch of glue there at the top so that it doesn't tip over with time. And I again used my fingers to help encourage those leaves there to curl. And then with these guys, I actually did the same again. They're hot glued down below. I just moved them around, held them in different places, kind of figured that this was what I liked the best. And each one of these things I've made, I've put them in somewhere different position just because, I don't know, they each kind of have their own thing going on. But to support it, I hot glued it down there, and then I took my glue and I put a tiny little dab of glue on the back of one of these and just kind of pressed it into place so that this would help kind of keep it standing up for the long term. This one didn't really have a good spot to glue it, but it's also a shorter stem, so I'm not really worried about it. This has been sitting for about almost 2 weeks now, and they look exactly the same as when I put them in, so I'm pretty confident that one's going to last for a while. If I was worried about it, I could encourage it to come in a little bit and glue it on to the stem, but I think it's going to be just fine. And then to finish it off, I just went to the craft store and bought this little moss stuff and kind of just tucked it in to cover up all my little hot glue mess, because I'm not really good with a hot glue gun. And I even tucked it underneath just a little bit, just so that it has a little more texture and kind of covers up any little mistakes I may have made in my gluing. So there you have it. The monster plant in 2 very different ways.